better count your money. You better count your money. You better count your money.
Hey everyone, welcome to the first show for the Normalized Money Show here on YouTube. My name is Kirsten VanderJagt, or you can call me K Money because I was in banking as a financial analyst, underwriter, investment banker. I've been an owner of several companies, bought and sold companies for the last 20 years. And I'm really happy to have this channel and to be here today and tell you about Katie's House Foundation, which is actually a 501c3 housing nonprofit. So again, that's a housing nonprofit. But we on this show want to talk to ages 15 to 19 about money and about housing, about music, about mental health, and really, what are you doing with things today and with your life, and get into the nitty gritty of money, not the high level, you can make $1 million or $1 billion fluff kind of stuff, but the stuff that you have to know, absolutely must know between the ages of 15 and 19 to make sure that you don't fumble away all the money that you might get on a basketball contract or something like that. Or if you're not going to college or you're not big into sports, just the stuff that you absolutely must know when you need to find your first job, or when you need to get your first apartment, or get your first car, or student loan, or credit card. So that's a little bit about Katie's House Foundation and this channel. I'm going to actually pass it over to Julie, who is one of our committee members and also the co-host for this show, which will run every weekend. So Julie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, well, thank you. Yeah, excited to be here too. Welcome everybody. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you join our channel every Saturday. We're going to have a new show for you. So my name's Julie. You can also call me J Gunfire. I'm a retired police officer. I currently work as a detective. I'm currently on the board. I live in the Midwest, so I'm in Cook County, Illinois. And I'm currently I'm the law enforcement liaison for the drug court, mental health court, and veterans court. So it helps give a little bit of an insight for our Katie's House Foundation, a lot of the people that we partner with. And yeah, I really want to say that, one of the things that's near and dear is the fact that, I think ever since I was younger, I noticed that we don't teach any type of financial literacy to our young ones. And, being out as a patrol officer for all those years, I came into a lot of situations where I had a lot of kids, you guys' age, that they just didn't think about this stuff until it was, I don't want to say too late, because it's never too late for anything, but you can definitely make your life way less difficult and your environment way better if you kind of learn some of these things, and that's what we're here for. So I'm excited to be here today, Kirsten.
Me too. I'm excited that you're here and that you are part of the committee at Katie's House Foundation and that you are doing the show. You and I, talk about so many things all the time related to what's happening in real life every single day. Not the hype, but, right? Let's just talk about today, right? I have a teenager. He's rolling out of bed. He's 16 years old and he's going to high school. He's a junior. And so music is so important to him, and music puts him in a certain place. And, I'm sure that will lead a little bit about how his day goes. And before we jump into, music more, I do want to share a little bit more about my personal story. Which you guys can all read over at katieshousefoundation.org. And the reason I want to bring this up is because, this is our introduction show. I do want you guys to have a good understanding of who I am and who Julie is. And so, Julie, thank you for sharing your professional background with us, if you ever feel inclined to share your personal story, I think that's really important. So that way, our viewers can storyboard their life. So what that means is, right, here I am, I just turned 40. I know, maybe we're not supposed to talk about our age, but that's the truth. So 20 years ago, 25 years ago, what was I doing? Um, well, I guess we could go a little bit earlier than that. When I was 12, actually, um, I was in a situation where I had to become emancipated legitimately, not where you want to, but you have to, and where you have to find work. So you'll learn on my story, unfortunately, that, my parents got wrapped up into drugs and alcohol. And my dad was an Army veteran. He's passed away due to cancer related to his lungs and his liver from smoking and from drinking. He was an adopted child, amazing parents who adopted 4 kids, very highly educated, my grandparents were. Their 4 adopted kids were also highly educated, highly uh, articulate, and they still win a certain way, right? And so my mother comes from a family where maybe education wasn't the highest, most important thing on the agenda every single day. Maybe it was the happiness quotient or just getting through the day. So a little bit more frugal, um, a little bit more humble, beginnings kind of a thing. And really just, my mom wanted to be a mother. And so she and my dad got married young, 20 years old, had 2 babies right away. Myself and my older brother were 1 year apart. And my dad got stationed in Pearl Harbor, in Hawaii. And, I think because he was adopted, he never really worked through maybe all of that acceptance. Um, and again, both my parents were exceptionally smart and kind people. And so here they have 2 kids by the age of 21. Then they have another a couple years later, actually 6 years, and they get a divorce because I think friends, their friend crowd was still highly involved in their life and their marriage. And right, people are doing the roommate situation. They may be going to college. They may be working. Obviously, if you have babies when you're in high school or in your early 20s, or even, I mean, anytime, quite frankly, it's very expensive. And also, there's an emotional outlay with having children. And so the reason that I bring all of this up is because, um, when they got a divorce and never having a ton of money to start with, or careers that were really put together, or owning a house early on. So this is the opportunity that all of our viewers have, right? From age 15 to 19, or even 25, you have an opportunity to do things the way that you want to and set yourself up with a plan. If you tune into our show and get the knowledge and form a life plan, um, which we're happy to help you do, or you can take our 30-hour paid class for $600. We'll have that up so that way you guys can actually do that with the homework, here in September that can be purchased. But basically what we're getting at here is, right, you have an opportunity from ages 15 to 19 to save money, to make money, hopefully not get yourself in any legal trouble, and get a felony or something like that that would bar you from getting a good job throughout the rest of your life. Um, and so for me, I went to 12 different schools. I went to 4 schools in 6th grade alone. So when all of this stuff was happening right before, the police and child protective services got involved in 7th grade, in 6th grade, like I said, I moved around quite a lot. And, I ended up starting working when I was 15, full time, and homeschooling. Um, so, once you start making money, that's great. You've got some money. What are you going to do with it? Um, are you going to, and then for me, it was like, am I going to go into the military and get an education? What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Because nobody's paying for me. That was at, 15 and 16. I actually did have an aunt, wonderful, she's wonderful. She stepped in. She had very high expectations of me as it related to, you know, life is not going to be easy. So stay sober. That was the difference between her and my mother, is that she decided to get sober at some point in her life when she had a child, my cousin. And my mom never did get sober, and she passed away, unfortunately, when she was 42 years old. Um, she was homeless and she was hit by a car. And that's my mom's storyboard, right? So these are the kinds of things that you guys listening, what's going to be your story? Now, for me, I was really lucky that my aunt didn't just give me everything, right? I mean, I maybe got $100 a year for jeans at tax time, and I would go to the mall and get myself some clothes. But what that did is that made me want to work. And so I did work. And once you have 40 hours a week worth of income coming in that you've never had before, and you're 15, 16, 17 years old, you have an opportunity again to buy a car. If you know how to do that or have a cosigner, you may or may not have a cosigner. Certainly, if they cosign, they're going to want you to make that payment and keep that job and know how to pay for your insurance and that car and the fuel, and not just pay it for you. Because if they do that, then when you turn 18, or whenever, at some point, you're going to be off on your own, you won't know how to do it yourself. And when you get into a pickle, you won't maybe know what to do. So these are the things that we're going to talk about here. Me personally, I just want to share, that I'm not actually money motivated. I love opportunity and I love giving back, which is why I have 2 nonprofits. My storyboard that I would just like to share in short order is that I, wanted to go into the military. I got into a car accident right before I was getting ready to swear in, and I could not go into the military because I hurt my neck really bad in that car accident. I had to see a chiropractor 3 times a week, for 6 months. And so that was right when I was working with, swearing in San Diego, California. And unfortunately, you know, I then was barred from all of the branches, and that just completely changed my plan. Um, and so I ended up going into finance and working really, really hard, um, to learn everything that I could that they don't even teach in college, although I did put myself through college. Um, and what I would say is that, the world is your oyster here in America, right? We have literally a computer in our hand, and you can either use that for good, looking for solutions, writing business plans, writing your own personal plan, taking action, or you can just scroll your life away, or you can chill your life away. But you
Yeah,
have
so
all the
Kirsten,
opportunity. So
just on
Julie,
that,
sorry,
yeah, just
Julie,
on that
jump
topic,
in here right here. Jump in.
your last little story of your, you had a sudden change in your plans. You did have a storyboard. You had something that you really wanted to do. And the important part to take out of this is that it happens to all of us, and that you didn't let that derail you to the point where you turn to drugs and alcohol. You didn't let it derail you that you just became so depressed that you weren't able to continue on. You just changed your idea of what you were going for to a different um, section, which was finance, right? Or it was education. So you wanted to go into the military, you wanted to get that structure, you wanted to get that 3 meals a day, you wanted to get that housing, and then you wanted to get out and do the same things that you did. You just had to change your plan a little bit. And you touched on something earlier about, like doing all these things right, and that not getting arrested and not getting into trouble. And unfortunately, in my side of things, I didn't really get in trouble when I was a kid, but I was not perfect. I was not an angel. they probably make the best cops, right? So it just turned out that, like, you were able to zig and zag, and that's what we have to do in life no matter what. If it's you weren't expecting something, you got to zig and you got to zag and you got to get over it and move on.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess my point to your story there is that getting arrested isn't the end of everything. The juvenile system is actually a reform system. So if you can make a mistake and you can get through it, the younger you are, the more your records are going to be sealed and most likely expunged. Most states now expunge automatically juvenile records because the whole idea behind the reform system is to let our kids make mistakes, but then, as we get more older and we get more responsibilities. You talked about how you had to have a job, because now I didn't have to have a job until I was actually 17. You had to do it much earlier. So when it comes to something like that, I'm no different than you. It was just a different time in my life that I had to do it. And those are the kind of things that, like, here we realize that they have these struggles because we had them too. We just had them in a different time frame. Society right now is very is very inundated with mental health, addiction. Opiate addiction is big. And those are the kind of things that I think here, if we teach our young about financial literacy and we teach our young about a storyboard and about where you going. Okay, your story might not be perfect in the end, but you had to change here or there, but you finally got somewhere, and it wasn't such a struggle that you were underneath the overpass with a sleeping bag and that's it. You weren't going to school in high school, unable to figure out, okay, I can't go to college because I can't afford it or I don't have the grades. You're unable to, like, really figure out what you want to do. And I sometimes reference that game of life, where you get to that board game and you play and you have to either get paid, or you get that education and then you have all that debt. And I think one of the things that, like, you and I are going to talk about a little bit later at the end of the show is about, your credit score and your credit and what that means. And those are the kind of things that we automatically give our kids credit when it comes to education and getting a college education, but we don't really teach them what do we do after that.
Yeah, absolutely everything you said is so spot on. And we're going to have we recognize the viewers, right? You're going to have people that come from where they have those opportunities and where they absolutely don't have those opportunities, to meaning y- you know college is everyone's opportunity here in the United States, or even a trade or
I was
ask.
gonna say, you're gonna hear me say that I'm gonna tell kids nowadays that if they really are like a hands-on person, or they have a little bit more of an ADD type personality, I would say that they need to get into the trades, because I pay my plumber way more than I pay,
That's
my
very,
banker. So I pay my,
that's very
sewer
true.
guy way more. So even then, there's other opportunities out there, and that we need to look at the bigger picture. So that's kind of, why we're here. And we wanted to talk about all the things and this is just one episode. So
Yeah.
follow us, subscribe, um, you know, keep coming back, because you're going to hear more stories, and you're going to hear more about what to do to make those zigs and zags easier for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, that's the best way to actually help the channel, is to subscribe. Excuse me. So please make sure that you do subscribe. You keep coming back, listen in every weekend. We'll try and keep it between 20 minutes and maybe an hour, depending on the banter and the subject matter. One thing that I want to bring up is, the happiness quotient. And that's why I do what I do, is in this show in particular, is because a lot of people are going to talk about your work, but but are they going to talk about, like, hey, are you happy today? Right? Like, people say, like, hey, how's work going? What have you been doing lately? Like, throughout your entire life. But they don't go, hey, are you happy today? Right? And so I think that's a personal responsibility of each individual to take some thought and time and think like, what would make me happy? Um, whether that's a job or, children or traveling. But having, like you're talking about, zigging and zagging, um, having the grit to make changes in life and having the ability to actually do those things without um, getting yourself into a situation that you can't get yourself out of. Because, Julie, it's really interesting to hear you talk about the fact that the police system is willing to forgive certain things. Um, but I think people are rather hard on themselves, and you have to learn to forgive yourself and move forward, right, Julie?
Right. And it's obviously our system is meant for punishment, right? I mean, the whole idea is that, you don't need to be going out and taking something that's not yours just because that you're in a position where you can't get that. You don't have the means to get it. You can't ask your parents. And like Kirsten, she didn't have parents. I had parents I could ask for stuff. But I've also had a couple of cases where I had somebody that was much like Kirsten, where her aunt had taken her in, but she still went out and stole at the store because she just didn't have the heart to ask the mother for for the money. So, learning about money and learning about life, in conjunction with money, and that, I think, can just give them the confidence that they don't need to do those kind of things. And that's where they do those things, they get in trouble. And luckily for this girl, she did it young enough and it was her first offense, that it's not going to follow her for the rest of her life. Where you use the big F word, the felony word. And, I can tell you countless kids that get into an environment where they're kind of peer pressured into it. I think they want to do, and their parents are good and their parents want them to do those things, but their environment outside to be cool, to fit in, and to do that all comes in more important than their storyboard. And I think we can maybe project out and let them know that, your time right now is just a little click in that storyboard. So really, let's try to concentrate on getting that storyboard to stretch out, and have these stories you can tell back on, as opposed to, you know, having your storyboard shorter than it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, two takeaways on that note that you just said, that we will talk about something that I like to call 10-year chapters. My belief is, on average, you can live to be 100 years old, although the average lifespan is 80. Um, but we teach this in the Normalized Money Project, formalized classroom, which is everyone, well, I like to tell them, and you viewers, you get 10-year chapters. So if you think of it that way, right? So 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and so forth. That, I think that helps my son, who's a teenager, because he even says to me now, like, he's only halfway through his second chapter. So if it's 16 and he gets in trouble, he has the opportunity to recover. Now, granted, you don't want to go getting into trouble, right? And you do want to have the opportunity, or at least take advantage of opportunities, to ask for help. And people do ask me, what's the difference between me and some other people who maybe have a similar start in life, but they end up, committing
With a much
crime.
shorter storyboard.
Yeah, a
Much shorter
shorter
storyboard.
storyboard.
Mhm.
Or maybe, they don't ever get into owning property or owning, being happy, I suppose, whatever it is that makes them happy. I would say it's because I asked for help throughout my entire life growing up. I would go to the school counselor, I would go to my parents' friends who, you know, I thought were doing things differently, and they would help me. So, what do you think about people asking for help, even of the police? Maybe, maybe not necessarily on the 911 line, when there's no emergency, but
Yeah,
even outside of that, just making friends with a police officer or with just people
you
of
know,
good nature.
it's as we get older, it's called networking. But when you're younger, it's looked at as, asking for help or getting those mentors. The boys and girls clubs and a lot of those actually have those programs so that the kids are around other people that, like you said, they were doing things differently than your parents. And that's not a bad thing. And it's not a bad thing. I mean, I had a big influence in my life, my best friend's parents, and they treated me like their daughter, and they still do to this day. And I can, if I needed to go tomorrow, she would let me in her house and let me stay there. I mean, she treats me just like her daughter. But I learned a lot from that, you know. And when I was out on the street, there were times when, you know, these kids, they were doing things that, you know, I literally had one kid one time that he was over at a girlfriend's house, and the girlfriend wanted nothing to do with him. He was probably 15, 16 years old. And he just was, it was his first experience. And he basically looked at me and he said, I just don't have anybody to tell. I don't have anybody to ask anything to. I don't have anybody to help me. You know, like my parents are always at work. My mom, I can't talk to her. She you know. And I'm not sure if it was a language barrier or what, you know. But I could just definitely tell that this kid was, you know, he was in his first, you know, kind of rejection situation, and he just didn't have anybody to talk to, and he didn't know anybody. So, you know me, so I actually, you know, kind of set him aside, and I was in his area a lot, so I would drive by. I asked one of the other officers too, like, hey, you know, like, I mean, obviously he was in that situation, and he was comfortable enough with me to tell me that he just didn't have any, you know, like he didn't, he was heartbroken basically, but he didn't have anybody to tell him, like, you know, hey, you know, get back up on your feet, you know, concentrate on this, you know, look at the good side of it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I ended up you know, offering another officer that was a male to kind of check in on him more often, so that he wasn't always feeling like he had to talk to a woman, you know, when he was trying to break up with, or the girl was breaking up with him. I thought that was a little difficult for him. But yeah, I mean, those are the kind of things where, even if unfortunately I got sent over there because he was causing a problem in the apartment, right? But we want to make sure that, you know, that's not going to happen to everybody, you know. I mean,
What
but
happened to him? Do you know?
no, I don't really. I've retired, so I really, he's probably just about getting out of school by now. So,
Yeah,
but
so, you know, if you need someone to talk to, you can definitely reach out to us at Katie's House Foundation through our comment page, or I'm sorry, it's actually our contact page. And you can leave a comment there, or you can leave a comment under this video, you know, if you want to. But essentially, if you need something, there are so many people who want to help, right?
right, everywhere. I mean, and most of the time, you know, for those kids that are, as you'd call them, aged out foster care, or I call them, you know, like couch surfers. Those kids that don't really, they're trying to get through high school, but they don't really have a real solid foundation at home, and they're not really comfortable being at home, but they don't have a full-time job because they're trying to get their education first. They maybe do want their storyboard to say that they went to college or you know, trade school. And those are the kinds that, you know, like, you know, we obviously, when we start talking more about Katie's House Foundation and the ability to have a house, or have a place to live that doesn't cost as much as it costs to live on your own, that's where those kind of things, and knowing where to go to get that information, will come in handy. And I think, you know, we can always point people in the right direction if they do need that assistance
Yeah,
in their area, because obviously not everybody's gonna, you're on the West Coast, I'm in the Midwest. You know,
right.
if there's somebody on the East Coast, we know enough people,
Yeah.
as we called it earlier, networking, and we have a whole, you know, area of investors with for rent, for you know, real estate that we deal with. So, and of course social workers, and I've got a lot of contacts. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So on that note, let's talk about housing. And I was a couch surfer, right? So when I was 16, I was staying in my friend's room, and luckily enough, her mom let me stay there. So then I had to rent a place eventually I just had to pay and rent a room with the little bit of money that I had. But at least then you have your own space, right? And that's what we want, I think, when you're trying to get out of your parents' house or get out of the shelter or stop living in your car or all kinds of places that you might be, living at right now, but you really just want to get your own place. And so Katie's House Foundation, we work with nonprofits who want to, have the houses that we have assigned to us. We work with government agencies who are interested in having the houses that we have assigned to us, and then we also work with private parties. And so you can actually apply directly on our website. It's a free application if you need a place to live. And, you know, once you start there, that gives us a little bit of insight into where you're located. And maybe if we, have an investor as part of our investor alliance who will assign a house to us, and then we can assign you a bedroom. The prices range from $125 per week up to really 3 times that, depending on what the cost is for us for the house. Because, of course, in the very expensive areas in the United States, rooms can go for $1,100 per month or, $250 per week, which includes your utilities. So that's your water, that's your power, that's your internet. There's also a home security system that's on every property, just on the outside. So that way, it protects the things that are on the inside, whether you're there or not. But having affordable housing is what it's all about to Katie's House Foundation, because that is, right, the foundation of safe sleep. And if you're sleeping okay, and if you can eat and you can get some water and you can take a shower and you have sanitary conditions, then you have a little bit of control over, right, getting yourself to work and getting yourself home to your own space, or going to college and all of these other kinds of things. And so that's what Katie's House Foundation does is if you need a place to stay, um, we don't care what your credit looks like. We don't even pull a credit report. You don't need 3 times the rent. So let's say that the rent was $500 a month. You don't need to be making $1,500 to qualify like you do for apartments. You just need to be making 500, for example. And so those two things make it a lot easier to get into safe, affordable, beautiful houses at Katie's House Foundation. And so we would encourage our viewers to keep that in mind over the coming years. And if your best friend and you want to bunk up in a room, we have some rooms that have double occupancy, and you would each pay your own way. And then we have some rooms that are single occupancy. We do allow for children in some of the houses. We do allow for pets in some of the houses. And the whole objective is to make it easy for people to get into affordable housing and also to get out of affordable housing. And so what that means is that when you live at one of the houses that's assigned to Katie's House Foundation, we do encourage you to take the 30 hours of modules of financial literacy, the formal homework that's involved. So not this YouTube show that, we're going to cover a lot of the class material, but, we want you to be engaged in the homework and also working one-on-one with a mentor like either Julie or myself or a TA that we have as part of that class. So you can buy your own house when you leave. So there's no lease at Katie's House Foundation. It's basically a boutique shelter. Every house or every place is. And you can come for as little as a week, or you can stay for as long as 2 years. And sometimes there'll be a government grant, there'll be house vouchers. We do take all of that kind of stuff. We take donations, or you can private pay because you're working. If you are living there, you do need to be working or have going to school or something that you're doing, or you're on fixed income. Maybe you're retired and you're on fixed income. And so I just want you guys to know that's the crux of what we're doing is we want people to be able to get into safe, affordable housing and then to move on and buy their own starter house. Maybe you will have met a roommate in Katie's House Foundation. Let's say it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. We've got 4 people living there, each in every room. We do a background check on everybody to make sure that they don't have anything as far as violent offenses, sexual misconduct, arson, or housing as a condition of parole. And so, we vet the people that are living there. But let's say you get along with 3 of the roommates and the 3 of you take the class over the course of living there for 6 months to 2 years. And then you guys want to buy a house and you know how to budget for one and you've gotten your credit in where it should be. Julie and I and our network, we will help you absolutely find a house wherever you want to in the United States, put you in touch with a real estate agent or somebody else who manages that transaction. And you guys can go and get your own little piece of earth. So, I mean, it's a big overarching mission.
Now that's far away for some of these kids. So
That is far away,
let's
but you got to
start
start.
with,
You got to
let's
start.
we're already in a little bit of over, I think, what we always try to
All right.
go for. So what do we want to tell our viewers to do this week?
So this week we want people to go on annualcreditreport.com, not any other place. We're going to have secrets here on the show. Don't go to Credit Karma, please. Nothing against them, but we just want you to go to what we trust and what we rely. And so annualcreditreport.com, get a free report. Don't sign up. You might have to validate your email address, but you don't have to pay anything. Pull that report. You do need to be 18 to pull it. And then we want to chat with you next week on what the report came back as. And then number 2, if you're interested in applying for a credit card because you don't have one or you have no credit, I would suggest just going to CapitalOne.com, applying for a credit card. It'll probably be a couple $100 if you have no credit. Don't use it.
So my question to you is then, if it comes back that it's going to be a secured card,
Okay.
is that a card that they should apply for? Is that something where they have to put money in themselves first? Or are they just getting a credit card where it's like money that they don't actually have put in themselves? You know how like some of those cards say secured card, which basically means it's like a savings account that they're holding, but they're reporting your information that you're paying yourself back.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are only eligible for a secured card, you should still take advantage of that. The difference is going to be that you would need to have the money or the collateral. So let's say that they tell you we'll give you a $300 secured credit card. That means that you need to have that money so that way they know that you can pay it. However, they're still reporting on your credit, which is building your credit. You want to have 3 trade lines that are active and open. And we will just get more into these things. But for right now, Julie, thank you for keeping us, the episode as short as it can be. This episode is probably longer than most because it's our launch and we want you to have an understanding. But those are the 2 things for ages 18 and up that we want you to do is basically get a copy of your free credit report. 1 bureau is fine. You're going to need to know 5 security questions. It's going to probably take you 5 minutes. If you want to get all 3 bureaus, that's good. What you're looking for is to make sure that there's nothing fraudulent on there. So that's the starting point is
or
getting
parking
a free
tickets,
report.
right?
Yeah. What's that?
I said, or a parking ticket or an unpaid ticket.
Yeah. So we're going to work through all this. And if you're under 18, so if you're 15 to 17, I would suggest my tip to be, right, Mark Cuban says that you can get food about half off or something, the prepackaged food at the end of the day at the grocery store. And so if you have to buy yourself food or if you're just looking to going at the end of the day and asking the cashier where they have that rack of things that need to get sold that day for a discount would be the tip for people that are younger than 18. So that's it for me today. Julie, do you have anything?
No, I just come back, subscribe, hit that button, and we'll see you next week on and we're going to build each week. So I'm excited to actually have some comments, and eventually we'll get some people on here that can tell us their story or can tell us what's going on. And yeah, let's do this.
All right. Well, have a great week and we'll talk with you soon. Bye bye.